Hello, everyone. We are back. Time for another vlog, June 2023.
Hello.
So we're getting through halfway point of the year, almost there, and it's going by fast once again.
It's going by real fast. And so a few weeks ago, we traveled to Japan.
We did,
We were in Japan for about 2 weeks. And while we were there, we actually did a lot of board gaming things. Right? We visited some stores, we visited a couple of cafes, and then of course we went to the Tokyo Game Market. And so today we just wanted to kind of discuss how our experience at the Tokyo Game Market went. And so if you're ever curious about what board gaming is like in Japan, then hopefully this video will give you some insights. This is also going to serve as sort of like our June vlog, even though we're almost halfway through June. And so we do have a few things to discuss, including our 4-year anniversary, which is coming up at the end of this month.
4-year channel anniversary.
Yes. 4-year channel
Our anniversary is a little bit longer than that, but yes, 4-year channel anniversary.
Yes, as well as just some things some changes that we're going to be making to the channel. And so if you'd like to know about all of those updates, then stick around to the very end of the video. But of course, we will also include timestamps in the description below. But if you'd like to hear more about our gaming experiences in more detail, we were on a podcast episode recently called Going Analog. And this is a podcast by Dan and Christina. If you'd like to hear about our joint experiences at the game market, we've included a link to that podcast episode below.
Yeah, if you like podcasts, you enjoy board games, this is a really, really good one to check out. They do always they talk about games and then a topic of discussion. So ours, because technically all 4 of us were in Japan at the same time, also visiting the Tokyo Game Market, we thought, why not talk about that on their podcast? So if you didn't know, we went to Japan for 2 weeks. This was something highly on Monique's bucket list for a very, very long time. And when we saw an opportunity to go, we're like, let's go. And then it just happened to be the game market was centered around it. So we kind of planned a trip around that. Spent 1 week in Kyoto and 1 week in Tokyo. Those are the 2 big cities. So if you watched our Let's Take a Trip to Japan, what's the name of that game?
Let's take a trip. Let's go to Japan.
Let's Go to Japan, which is a game that we covered. That one kind of basically helped us plan a huge itinerary, in addition to all the other recommendations that other people have told us about.
Yes, it was very hard to plan this trip, mainly because there are a lot of recommendations out there. There's a lot of stuff to do. I mean, you're talking about an entire country, right?
Because there's so much to do, you really want to try to maximize every single day. But Monique and I are not those kind of planners where it's like at 8 o'clock we're here, at 9 o'clock we're there. By 12 o'clock, we're eating at this restaurant, and we're not those kind of planners.
We're wanderers.
So it's like, okay, we're in the north. What can we figure out what to do now that we're in the north? So we had kind of like a good skeleton kind of big ticket items that we wanted to see and then try to plan around those. And I think that worked out for us pretty well. Japan is considered a very safe country, so I felt very at ease just kind of wandering, looking around, walking around. I might not be able to read the signage, but Google Translate is fantastic over there. So that is a hot tip. If you are concerned about the language barrier, Google Translate is very, very useful.
Now, like Devine was mentioning, we spent our first week in Kyoto. So we pretty much landed in Tokyo. And then we took a bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto, which was about 3 hours. The bullet train is extremely fast.
Very fast.
Yes.
I was like, oh, well, we'll have a nice view of the countryside. It's kind of so fast that it's going like... And it kind of made me a little nauseous, like just if I was staring outside.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. If you get a little nauseated on the trains, try not to stare too long outside because it might kind of make you feel a little woozy.
And Kyoto, for anybody who's not familiar, is sort of like an older part of town. Like Tokyo is like a very commercial, big city sort of feel, and Kyoto is a lot more.
It's a hybrid. It still maintains a lot of the old, but also has some modern and new stuff.
Yeah, and so in Kyoto you'll see a lot of temples and just a lot of like older style buildings. One of the main recommendations we received for Kyoto was visiting temples because the temples there are really beautiful, and we ended up not going to any.
No.
Because I had a little bit of a cold earlier on in the trip. It wasn't COVID or anything. We tested and I felt generally fine. But because of that, we decided to stay outdoors. So there are a lot of other things to explore outdoors, fortunately. We went to the Arashiyama bamboo forest, which was beautiful.
Highly recommend it, yeah.
Of course, we went to the Inari Shrine, which is a really, really popular spot. Probably one of the most popular touristy locations there. We went at like the peak of sun. Don't recommend doing that.
Yeah.
It gets really hot and it's kind of a bigger spot than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, there's actually a long hike if you want to go all the way up the mountain. So whenever you see like pictures online, you kind of think like, oh, it's just gonna be this little trail and it's gonna be done. But it actually can go for a very, very, very long time.
Yes.
If you are kind of a hiker, this is a nice place to go to. If you're not, you can always just go peruse and then take the loop and go back to your train.
And it's quite a spiritual spot, it seems. So it was really beautiful just kind of experiencing the culture over there and also trying to be, respectful and mindful of people who are praying.
Yep.
We also visited the Gion district. And of course, we visited Hanamakoji. And we also brought that game with us.
We did. Yep.
That is one of my all-time favorite two-player only games. So it's one of the games that we like to travel with.
Travels well, yeah.
It was really fun, sort of just getting to see what the street looked like. It is quite a busy road, by the way.
Yeah, surprisingly, I thought like it would be one of those where cars are like blocked off. No.
No.
Cars go down. Yeah.
Definitely a road that is in use, but it's lined with shops and restaurants. So it's really fun just being able to walk around there. And nearby, we also visited a hidden Starbucks. It's not really hidden.
You can find it on Google Maps.
It just has like an outdoor facade of like a traditional style building.
Yeah.
But inside, it's pretty cool because they have tatami mats and several different sort of seating areas where you kind of order your drinks, you bring them to a tatami mat room, and you have to take off your shoes and kneel on the ground. So for anybody who can't sort of sit in like a kneeling position for a long time, then just be wary of that, like Naveen was.
Yeah, I struggle with sitting cross-legged or on my knees for too long.
Yeah,
And my matcha latte was very hot, and I was like, I need this thing to cool off so I can be done with this drink.
And the rest of our time in Kyoto, we pretty much spent eating.
Oh, yeah.
The food in Japan is kind of out of this world, especially if you enjoy Asian cuisine or specifically Japanese food. It's really, really, really good.
Yeah. There's an area in Kyoto that we highly recommend, and it's called Nishiki Market. It's basically like these 5 city blocks, a single line overcovering like street where there's vendors on the left and on the right, and each vendor specializes in a different product. And so you're kind of just paying cash, eating some food, going on to the next vendor, and just sampling and trying all these different types of foods.
We also took a day trip to Osaka where we also ate. We went to the Dotonbori district.
It's a very happening area.
And we tried their specialties, the okonomiyaki, which is like a Japanese savory pancake. We also tried the takoyaki, which is one of my personal favorites. It's basically a ball with octopus inside, and it's topped off with sauce and bonito flakes.
Yes.
So they're
Sometimes green
moving
onions.
because of the heat.
Yeah.
After spending about a week in Kyoto, we took a Shinkansen, which is a bullet train, back to Tokyo to meet up with some friends for the second half of our trip, Amy and Maggie of Thinker Themer.
Hello. Hi. Hi. What are you doing here?
And then we pretty much just hung out for the entire week, visiting different locations, because Amy and Maggie had actually been to Japan several times. And so they were almost like our own tour guides.
Yeah, they knew the kind of the cool places to go. They
Yeah.
also knew like a lot of the board game places. So they really helped guide our trip.
And so traveling around in Tokyo was a little bit more of a culture shock because it was extremely crowded. Like, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter what part of Tokyo you go to. There are tons of people there.
It is truly sensory overload also. Like going from Kyoto, which is more calm and relaxed, to Tokyo, which is like very in your face, very
yeah.
like lights and signage and just hustle and bustle. It was like, wow, we're in Tokyo now. So
Yeah.
this is a big change.
Different
so
world.
Get your levels up, you know?
And we're also very, very fortunate because we were able to see a few things that were just happening around the time we were there. We went to a sumo tournament.
Yeah, that was cool.
The athletes are so strong and flexible, and it was
Agile, very agile.
They're very agile. It was quite a sight. They were just throwing each other off the ring and into the judges.
Nobody gets hurt somehow. I don't know.
I guess not. And just being there was really fun because there's no seats. The way that you kind of sit around the stadium is you have to sit in a square. Most people were only fitting 2 people in there,
That's what it looked like, yeah.
but the 4 of us shared this square,
Yeah.
and it was quite cozy.
Remember that tatame sitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was struggling.
Naveen
but
was struggling a little
Mooney
bit.
did let me stretch my legs a little bit. There was also a festival going on in Tokyo at the time that we were there. In the Akihabara district that we were staying in, they kind of close off some of the main streets. They have vendors everywhere, and you can kind of walk and peruse.
We also went to a couple of art exhibits with Amy and Maggie, including Team Lab Planets.
And of course, while in Tokyo, we went to the Tokyo Game Market.
So, for anybody who's not familiar, Tokyo Game Market is what is the biggest board gaming convention in Japan. And it happens 3 times a year?
3 times a year. So it's actually held twice in Tokyo and then once in Osaka, which is another city.
And it's actually a 2-day event. We only ended up going to one day of it, which was a Saturday. And it was quite the experience. So it was our first time there. I think Amy and Maggie had gone once before, but several years ago. So they were mentioning how it has changed quite a bit since then. This time it was held at the Tokyo Big Site, I think it's called, which is, I think, their largest convention center. Now, if you're thinking about going, there are different types of tickets, which is something that we didn't quite prepare for. Basically, if you want to get certain games that you think are going to sell out, then you want to try to get in early. And those tickets you have to get in advance. You have to have a Japanese SIM card, though, in order to get those early tickets, so just keep that in mind. But otherwise, if you don't get those, then you'll wait in the general line, which is what we did. We got there not early enough, I think.
I think we got there like 15 minutes before doors opened.
50 or 30 minutes, something
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
like that.
It also happened to be raining that day. And by the time we got there, there was a massive line.
Huge.
The line did go pretty fast, though. For a while, we thought you weren't going to get in. But finally, when we got in, it was pretty overwhelming. There are a lot of people, and the convention layout is not like what we're used to. And not to mention, everything is in Japanese.
Yeah.
Everything. The
Yeah.
games are mainly in Japanese. You'll see some titles that we kind of recognize coming from the European or the North American market, but those are often also translated to Japanese, including the box covers.
Yep.
But a majority of the titles seem to be like indie titles where people are making it themselves and then sort of bringing it to sell.
Yeah. While we're at the game market, we also ran into a couple different people. We ran into Jay from Cardboard East, which is a YouTube channel. He basically covers a lot of games from the East, and he gives a ton of recommendations, was very, very kind. And he also pointed us in the direction that we really wanted to go.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jay, because without Jay's recommendations, we wouldn't have picked up anything. And we'll be going over everything that we picked up in a second. But one of the main things that Naveen was looking for at the game market was a game called Nakosu Dice.
Yes, I found it. There was only 2 copies available at the entire Tokyo game market. I scoured the entire list and tried to figure out who the publisher was. We went straight to that booth and asked for a copy if they happened to have one. This game actually came out back in 2016, so I knew it was kind of like a long shot. And they happened to have only 2 of them. And I know Amy and Maggie also wanted one, so I was like, we'll take both.
Yeah.
And so
It was like behind the
super
shelf.
happy.
It wasn't even out.
Yeah, they were like, Nakosu Dice. Yeah, I think I can get
I
one.
have
yeah.
2.
And he's like, I have 2. I was
We'll
like,
take
we'll
the
take
lot.
them. And so this is basically a trick-taking game that also utilizes dice. And I am just so happy that we picked it up. This one plays, I believe, 3 and 4 player. I would say it's only a 4-player game.
Yeah.
It's very thinky and it's very clever.
It's very brain burning.
Yeah.
We've played this one already. It's very, very good.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in detail in a different video.
Otherwise, we also sat in on a talk by Simone Luciani, who we had no idea was going to be there. So we all got really excited, sat down, and tried to reserve a seat. And
Front and center.
Front and center.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking, and of course, it's in Italian.
Cioè, per come lavoro io, seguo molto il
He was speaking in Italian, and it was being translated into Japanese.
Right.
So,
So we were just like,
yeah, when it started, we all looked at each other like, of course.
What were we
Of
thinking?
course. What are you
what?
thinking?
How centric of
How
us.
English-centric. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was very English-centric.
I know.
Fortunately, Maggie had an app where it was translating into
Almost
English.
in real time. Yeah.
Almost in real time, yeah. So we were able to kind of get a gist of what he was talking about. But it was really cool seeing him there anyway. And that's pretty much it. The majority of the market we spent walking around, looking around, and just taking everything in. If you're looking to go to a game market, just make sure that you prepare ahead of time. Try to do some research on games. And also maybe try to get there early.
Yes, and also try to have some cash on hand. Some vendors were taking card, but others would be cash only. So if you see something that you really want, make sure you have a little bit of cash with you.
And when you buy a game, ask if they have an English rule book, because
Right.
sometimes they do, and it's separate from the game, and they'll have to give it to you separately. And other than the Tokyo game market, we also visited a couple of game cafes as well as a few game stores. So we visited a cafe in Kyoto as well as one in Tokyo. They were wildly different. But it was really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's basically you rent out kind of the table for a set period of time. It includes a beverage with it, and then they have a game library that you just go and pull games from.
And they usually offer alcohol, which I thought was really interesting because you don't really see that here in America, at least.
Right, as part of like your entry fee includes a cocktail or a beer or just any other soft drink that you like.
Yeah, and of course, a majority of the games are in Japanese, but they had a pretty good selection of games to choose from.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just really interesting seeing, different tables set up with people who are playing games like Terraforming Mars or just games that that we see people playing in other areas of the world.
Because
So it's cool.
whenever I go on BGG and like you can sort by version. I'm always sorting by like the English version, so it's cool to see some of these boxes of really really popular games, but all in Japanese. There's something about it that was just really really exciting for me.
And as for gaming stores, the main board game store that everybody is familiar with is called Yellow Submarine. And so we went to our first one in Kyoto and didn't realize that there were so many more in Tokyo. And the one in Kyoto is quite small. But if you go to any Yellow Submarines in Tokyo, some of them are a lot bigger. So just be mindful of that. And they have a pretty good selection.
Yeah, it's like a hobby store also. So they have like minis and like RPG stuff, but then also a very diverse and big board game selection as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see sort of the differences in terms of what kind of games they focus on in Japan, as opposed to the games here, especially. The boxes are much smaller. Typically, they're card games. The ones that are not card games are typically imported, it seems.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of trick-taking games. I mean,
A ton.
a strong majority of them, I feel like, that we played were trick-taking games.
So at the game market, here are just some of the few games that we had picked up.
There's
they
mainly
are.
card games.
Small little card games, yeah.
All card games.
All card games.
So we already talked about Nikosu Dice. This is a trick-taking game. We also have another trick-taking game called King's Trick Takers. So this was recommended to us by Jay from Cardboard East. And apparently this is a part of a trick-taking system called Trick Takers, which I looked for everywhere when we were in Japan and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But I'm still on the lookout for Trick Takers. This apparently is a really heavy version of a trick-taking game. That's all I know about it. We haven't played it yet.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's like some asymmetry in factions, and that's pretty much it. It's still in shrink, but we
Yes.
are ready to play it soon.
It was on Kickstarter.
Yes.
And then we picked up another trick-taking game by the same company that doesn't have any English rules.
No English rules. We'll have
I'm
to
in
figure
the
that one out.
process of learning it. We were also gifted these two from a friend of the channel. We're going to call code names. And it's a game called Nana, actually. A lot of people recommended this. It's basically a mix between Go Fish and matching.
Yes.
Yes. But the way that it was described is that the sum of its parts are greater than... Oh, what is it? Yeah, the sum of its parts are greater than its parts.
its
What is it saying?
Parts. Yeah. Then it's individual parts.
Yes, the game is better than than it would sound. I
Yeah,
guess.
because when
is
you hear
what
Go Fish, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so we actually played it, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good.
Very simple, but very clever.
Yeah. Both these games are exactly the same. It's just one is a Christmas themed one, which
Yes.
is really cute.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about that.
Naveen
I
loves
love
that kind of stuff.
Christmas themed stuff. And then these two, Naveen picked up.
Yeah, this is just a tiny little set collection game. We just kind of walked up on a booth and just kind of asked. We saw like there's different like cocktails that you're trying to make, and so we haven't played it yet. But I like set collection games, so why not?
Yeah, it's a cute box. I think this is a 2-player only.
2-player only, yeah.
And then Reclaim, which is another one that I just turned around and Naveen was holding it.
This is a flip and
hand.
right kind of game. There's not very much information about it on BGG, but I spoke to the people that were there, and they kind of were just kind of giving me kind of a brief rundown about it. You're kind of filling in different terrain on your kind of map, and you're just trying to score the most amount of points, like most roll and rights. So that's Reclaim, and this one does have English rules.
Yes. For more games from the game market, I recommend checking out Amy and Maggie's video.
They collected a
'Cause
lot.
They had a list, and we
Yeah.
were pretty much walking around looking for games on their list. So, and these are some games that we just, in general, picked up walking around Japan. So this is a game called Dog Tag Trick, which we haven't played yet, but was super recommended by Amy and Maggie. So this better be good, Amy and Maggie. This is a game that Naveen kept seeing at the different Yellow Submarines while we
Yeah.
were there, called Golden Animals.
I can speak a little bit on this.
Okay.
So this is not. This is a game from actually the game cafe that we went to in Tokyo is also a publisher. And so this game is also just being released and kind of reskinned as an all-play game, which is formerly known as boardgametables.com. And this is called Golden Animals. So because I knew that the new one is called Couture, which is about like high fashion, I wanted the original one from the original publisher in Japan, knowing that I could just take basically the rules from Couture and apply it to this. It's still in shrink, and I saw it at a couple different places, and I also wanted to support the cafe that we were at, so that's why I picked this one up.
Yeah, and actually, while we're speaking on games that are different, we picked up this game. It's called Botswana. This was actually recommended to us. I've been trying to look for a message. If you recommended this to us, thank you so much, because this is a new version of an older game. So we actually have Botswana. It's a Reiner Knizia game about like very simple stock trading, basically.
So if you look up Botswana on BGG, it'll come up as Wildlife Safari. I don't know exactly when they changed the title from Botswana to Wildlife Safari, but this is basically the new Japanese version of it.
Yes, and so we were informed that a lot of times when games get brought to Japan, they actually re-skin it to kind of fit their market.
The art style.
So they'll change the art style. They'll change the box sizes sometimes. And so this got really overhauled. I mean, the animal figures that we have in our game are actual plastic figures that, as if you were to buy toys from the store.
From the 80s and stuff, yeah.
These are all like wooden meeples, and all of the card art is different. This is a much cuter version of Botswana.
Sure.
So really, really happy that we picked this one up.
Yep.
Probably going to replace our copy with it. So thank you for the recommendation.
Really good, yep.
Naveen also picked up this game. I don't actually know what it says.
This is the Twin Princesses. Twin Princes. This was recommended actually by Jay on one of his videos. And it's basically a 2-player area control game. So area control typically you think about at higher player counts. So I'm curious how this plays. I know Monique is not the biggest area control fan, but I think if it's a 2-player only game, I think that might change things, because then it's like just you and me, we got to figure it out. So still in shrink. I saw in kind of a secondhand location, and I decided, why not? I'm going to pick it up.
Which, by the way, the secondhand game board game selection is very strong in Japan.
Yeah.
We mentioned Yellow Submarine as a store that people are familiar with going to, but you will see board game sections in other stores. Like there's an electronic store called Yorobashi's, I think, and they have a pretty strong board game
Really big
selection
one,
as well. So just do a little bit of research before you go there if you're interested.
Yep.
And finally, a trip to Japan is not complete without some Sashi and Sashi games.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
So this was the very first game that we picked up while we were there. We got it at the Yellow Submarine in Kyoto. It's called Before the Guests Arrive.
Yes.
And
Theme of the game. You have guests coming, and you need to tidy up the house because you don't want to be embarrassed by the stuff that you have all over the place. It's apparently a light kind of set collection game where you're just trying to clean up your house. I've heard it is okay by some people, but you know what? In Japan, I had to pick it up. So, and I do like the art style for Sashi and Sashi games as well as their gameplay. So, before the guests arrive, hopefully we'll be playing this one soon.
Yeah. And finally, another Sashi and Sashi game. This is the game that Naveen looked around for the entire trip.
I did. Yeah, I really wanted this game.
We actually kept missing it, is from what we understand, because Amy was, when we finally told Amy, like the day before we were leaving, she was like, wait, I saw that everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's called Take the A Chord.
Yeah. This is a trick-taking game. It's basically the theme is around music, so the A chord, meaning like in music. And so this is one of those games where the trump suit can change from turn to turn. So it's not like, at the very beginning, it's like all A's are considered the trump. So maybe turn 1 it is, but as the game progresses, things can change. So your hand value will change mid-game. So we have not played it yet. It's still in shrink, but even though it's a 3 or 4 player game, I've heard really only play it at 4 players because the dynamic of the game is much better. It is not very highly rated on BGG for some reason, but whenever I kind of researched this, I was like, that sounds interesting what's going on in here. So hopefully I can report back on this one soon because this is one that I was looking for a very long time.
Yeah, and you finally found it.
Found it last day.
It was a happy day.
Literally on the day we were leaving Japan, I was able to run to that store real quick and pick it up.
And that's about it. That pretty much sums up our trip. It was fantastic. Again, we did a lot of eating. Naveen put matcha powder in his soy sauce.
I did.
And we got lost a couple of times.
Yeah.
So just be wary of the public transportation. That is probably the most difficult part. And of course, we had a wonderful time with Amy and Maggie. We're so sad to be home and to be so far away. Please go ahead and check out their channel and stay tuned for a possible collab soon.
Yeah.
All right. And so if you made it this far, I know it's been probably quite a long video already, so we'll probably keep this part brief.
Sure.
But just a few things. Our 4-year anniversary is coming up at the end of this month, 4-year channel anniversary. So we were thinking about possibly doing a live stream. We haven't solidified plans or a date yet, so just stay tuned for that. We'll probably be announcing it on here soon.
Sure.
Otherwise, we announced last time that we have a Dexter coin shirt. And so thank you to everybody who's supported so far. If you would like to pick up a shirt, I guess,
Yep.
we'll include a link to the Meep store down below.
We've also semi-wrapped up the Uwe Rosenberg series, so we have not done our full wrap-up video because we're potentially waiting on Oranienburger Canal, because we might try to include that beforehand, so stay tuned for that as well.
We don't know when or if,
Yeah.
so we might end up just doing the wrap-up video anyway. But either way, we're not going to be delaying the Mind Clash games any further. So
Right.
that is what's going to be coming next. I know a lot of people have been asking, which designer are you doing next? We're going to move on and finish the Mind Clash section.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll kind of see where we are.
Exactly.
All our debts will be paid.
Yes.
And the last sort of thing that we wanted to discuss is we are making a few changes to the way that we approach some types of our content moving forward. One of the biggest challenges that we've had, even considering the fact that I went full-time a little less than a year ago, is filming time is very tight. I guess.
Compressed, yeah.
Compressed, because most of our content requires the both of us to be here, and Naveen has pretty much a full-time job.
Yep.
Our forms of sponsored content that we do are Kickstarter previews, which tend to be just tutorials, as well as Kickstarter playthroughs and sometimes sponsored playthroughs for games that are already out in retail. The change that we're going to be making is from now on, any time that we do a tutorial-only Kickstarter preview, I'm just going to be the one doing them.
Yeah, 'cause
Kicking Naveen out.
I'm getting booted. Yeah. No, this actually relieves a little bit for me because being able to go to work and kind of focus on my regular day job stuff, and then Monique can focus on the tutorial side of it because she ends up teaching about 95% of the game anyway. So I think this was kind of a nice, delicate balance, so that way we can continue doing what we're doing on the channel. And Monique
Yeah.
can be working on videos while I'm at work at the same time.
It'll also open up more time for us to just do playthroughs together.
Exactly. Yeah.
So hopefully that'll be able to increase the amount of the playthrough and review content or just any other type of content that we want to do. So we're still testing out the waters. Content creation is a constant learning process. And even though we're almost 4 years in, there's still a lot to be kind of tested.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes. So that's it for now. Please let us know if you have any questions or if you just like to share what you've been playing in the comments below. And as usual, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.